Too many marriages are starved of sexual generosity, not because of lack of desire, but because of lack of understanding. So in this episode, we're diving deep into what it means to become a sexually generous spouse, why it matters, and what it looks like, and how it transforms your marriage from one that is duty-driven to one that is deeply connected. Welcome to the Campbell and Amanda podcast. My name is Campbell.
My name is Amanda.
And honey, you know I love this topic.
Yeah. Truth be told, he chose.
Of course I did. I chose the topic. All right. So we're talking about sexual generosity because we encounter a lot of marriages that are sexually starved. So let's be honest. Many couples are struggling in this area of sexual connection.
True. Yeah. And it's not because they don't love each other, but there are many factors related to the balance of life and energy and learning to connect, period.
Exactly. And it's not that they have stopped being attracted to each other. There are many factors, like you say. And because somewhere along the way, intimacy became something that was transactional and something that became neglected in their marriage. So today we're talking about sexual generosity, and maybe let's begin by first defining what we mean by sexual generosity.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So sexual generosity is the intentional choice to approach sexual intimacy with selflessness, joy, and a desire to give, not just to receive.
Ooh, that's loaded. Right?
So it's an intentional choice to approach sexual intimacy with selflessness, joy, and a desire to give, not just to receive.
Yeah. And it means that you show up in the bedroom as a servant. One. That is number one. You show up as a servant, not somebody who's a scorekeeper. Right? You know, one who's there to be like, well, last time I did this, you didn't do this. No, you are there first and foremost to serve. It's about offering your body, your time, and your attention out of love rather than obligation.
Right. And you know that we've talked about it on other podcasts, you know, that typically women need a little bit more preparing. And so it's not of a wham bam thank you ma'am kind of situation. You both have to be invested and have done some preparation to get to this place.
Exactly. And we'll get into the details of how we build sexual generosity into the marriage. But one question that came up, I think it was maybe our first or second episode, somebody asked on one of our online platforms and actually quoted this particular Bible verse. And I thought that it would be a good idea to just kind of talk a little bit about it because it sounds a little bit controversial, but I think it lays the foundation and the predicate for the fact that the Bible itself advocates sexual generosity. And the scripture I'm talking about is 1 Corinthians chapter number 7, verse 3 to 5. The whole chapter in and of itself is interesting to me, but these particular verses are very important, and you and I practice this. Do you want to read it?
The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent.
Right. So you as a husband has an obligation, a marital duty to your wife, as your wife has the marital duty to yourself. So do not deprive each other of sex unless by mutual consent. And when the Apostle Paul, now for those of you that are not in church, well, just bear with me for a second. When the Apostle Paul was writing this particular verse, he made the exception in terms of prayer. Right? Like stay away from each other if you have agreed to set time aside to seek God in prolonged prayer. That's what he meant by mutual consent.
Right.
Exactly.
So, you know, when we're fasting, I have to ask, are we fasting everything?
She actually does that.
And what's the usual answer?
No. I'm like, who would want to do that for 21 days? Are you kidding me? Yeah, because we do this annual fast at the beginning of the year, 21 days of prayer and fasting. So she's asked, like, hey, are we fasting from everything? I'm like, no, we're not. I'll fast from food. Don't you dare deprive me. But again, it's about mutually giving to each other, right? Mutual consent, not withholding as a punishment or a bargaining chip, right? You want to talk a little bit about how people misuse that, just the withholding as punishment?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the silent treatment on other podcasts, and that's really withholding emotional connection. And in many relationships, there's a withholding of sex as a punishment, for some sort of offense, or you got upset about he didn't do this or she didn't do that. And really, like, you're weaponizing sex.
Yes. At that point, you're weaponizing it. All right. So let's talk about what sexual generosity is not before we talk about what it is, right? So sexual generosity is first and foremost not transactional, right? It is not, if you do this, then I'll do that.
Right. So it's a matter of, we've talked about also that we're in a covenant relationship. So it's not contractual. So we're not saying this is 50-50. We're saying we're going to bring 100-100. And so when we say that, we are bringing 100 no matter what the other spouse brings.
Exactly. And it's also not manipulative.
Right.
Right? It's not used, you do not use sex as a coercion tool or something that you use to control your partner.
Right. So we don't weaponize it, and then we don't dangle it like a carrot that, our spouse wants. And we're saying, well, then you got to here's your honey-do list. If you want,
if you want some, you
want
better do
something.
this.
Here's the honey-do list.
Okay. And then it's not obligatory, right?
Right.
It's not a feeling of being forced to do something, because forcing sex kills desire.
Yeah. I mean, it becomes an act of, you're a tool. You each become a tool for your own pleasure, and it's really not a selfless act at all. It's the complete opposite of sexual generosity.
Yeah, because generosity is the mindset of service. Right. It's a mindset that says, I want to bless you. I want to please you. I want to connect with you, and I want to serve you in this sacred way of our bodies and our spirits and our minds, all of us connecting, right? Okay, so why does sexual generosity matter?
Well, I think you covered it in connection. So you talked about connecting and serving in a sacred way. I'm going off script, okay?
Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
You're talking about connecting and serving in a sacred way. And by saying sacred way, we're saying that there's something more than a physical act that's happening. There is a connection that's deeper than two people feeling pleasure. There is a surrender of your mind and your bodies to each other, and it deepens emotional intimacy. So when physical affection flows freely, when it's not forced or coerced, emotional walls come down. Because there's a depth in seeing and knowing and being seen and being known.
Exactly. So it deepens that emotional intimacy that you have with each other. And then secondly, it also reduces temptation. There's a very practical reason for sexual generosity, right? When both spouses feel satisfied in their sexual relationship and they feel seen by the other, outside temptations tend to lose their power, because you are each other's object of affection, right? So temptation reduces. We don't say it eliminates temptation, but it drastically reduces temptation.
Right, and it reduces the urge to act on the temptation.
Exactly.
So like the temptations will still be there. Yeah. But the urge to act will be reduced, decreased, and hopefully eliminated.
Yeah, because I got a cookie at home. Right? You're like, yeah, so why should I try and pursue this when I already have a cookie at home?
Right. A whole jar.
A whole jar. Hello. All right. And then it strengthens spiritual bonding. And this is what I try and explain, especially to young men. I tell them, listen, I know what is going on in your body. I know how you feel. And I know this urge that you have to act out, to go and have sex just with any woman that is available. But I want you to know that when you reserve yourself for the woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with, there is this spiritual bonding that happens. So because sex is both physical and spiritual, you don't want to bond with just anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's not special if it's not reserved for someone special. There's nothing spectacular about it. There's nothing meaningful in it. It's just, again, you're a machine trying to get a fix, you know, because there is no connection beyond an orgasm.
Exactly. You know, and at that point, then you just begin to treat somebody as a way of satisfying your own sexual desires and not taking their sexual desires into consideration. And so the mindset that you have to come to this with is one of sacrificial and joyful giving. Right? This is what sexual generosity is all about, right?
Yes.
You want to jump into...
Yeah. Do you want me to read the?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So, from the Bible, from the book of Hebrews, from the chapter 13, verse 4, it says, "Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed kept pure." And when we are treating sex like a means to an end, and not a sacred act or an act set apart for a special a special partner, then there is no purity in it because it is completely selfish. Yeah, and there's no purity. I mean, I can't say it any other way.
Yeah, there's a selfishness that comes with it.
Right,
yeah.
Which in itself is impure.
Yes, true. All right, so what being a sexually generous partner looks like or spouse looks like. The first thing is this, and in no particular order of importance, intimate often. Initiate, sorry. Did I say intimate? Yeah.
Yes.
Initiate often and with joy. Yes. Initiate often and with joy. Don't always wait to be pursued. Pursue your spouse passionately.
Yes.
Right? And I say this to her sometimes. I'm like, I don't feel like you're pursuing me.
So he parades himself.
Yeah, then I parade myself. I'm like, hello.
And then he says, get a hold of yourself, girl.
Yeah.
Come on, you just paraded yourself.
Exactly. You know, but and I mean, we bring a little playfulness into our lives and into our sex life, you know. And like I always tell people, like if you want to have the best sex, especially as guys, you cannot just get up and just do it. You got to plan for it. You know, you got to start the wooing, you know, early on the day with the first text, the first good morning. Like if you want your day to end well, you better start it well.
Well, because generosity shouldn't only be in the bedroom. It should be throughout the day, throughout, you know, in the daily life and the mundane and the ordinary things that happen. That way your partner understands that not just that you want to get in the bed together, but that you actually care and you want to serve their other needs as well.
Exactly. And the other thing too is that you have to be emotionally present, not just physically available. And that is super important to understand. Let me just speak from a man's perspective, okay? For us men, it's very easy to get into the mood. All right. It's very easy. Somebody just has to undress. The wife just has to undress and boom, we're there. Right. Because we're very visually driven beings. But one thing I learned from almost the beginning of our marriage was that the emotional connection was super important for you. At first, I thought it was just for you, but I also found that the emotional connection was important for me. And so for me, I had to as part of the preparation and quote unquote the foreplay, it had to be the realization that if you have something that is weighing on your heart and mind, I have to create the space for you to speak about whatever is on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, and we're speaking in generalities because everybody is
It's
unique
different.
and
Yeah.
different. But in general, I think so often we become numbed. Our senses are numbed when we are going throughout our day, handling problems, depending on what your occupation might be, planning life for other people, addressing, making decisions, helping people, talking to people about their lives. You need it. There's a sense of like numbing because you need to have a moment. You need to be able to handle it all that's coming your way. And then sometimes that requires some space. Sometimes that requires you need to vent to somebody.
Yes.
Talk to somebody about how you're feeling. Sometimes that needs like a massage.
Yes. No,
Literally like non-sexual physical touch that kind of awakens you again to feel and to be present in the moment.
And for you, especially as a teacher who's dealing with primarily children the whole day, then you come home and dealing with our son, one of the things that you say often is, I need some adult time, right? And sometimes that means just unwinding by talking about your day. Or if it is a weekend, watch something together, right? Just so that you feel like you're in the adult world.
Now we say weekend because we're mature, and we try not to stay up late
during the week
so that we can function at work the next day during the week.
Exactly.
Now, if you can stay up and watch something together because you need to like unwind, by all means.
By all means. But I have found that conversation is super important for that emotional connection. Non-sexual touch, super important for that connection. And again, speaking just to men and especially to young men, these are skills that we are not taught. To be honest, because when we are having conversations about each other, I remember growing up, going to school and guys coming from their weekend talking about their sexual exploits. Everything was just so physically driven. There was no maturity in what they were saying, and they would talk about all that. And if you're not careful, that's what you would think life is all about and sex is all about.
And depending on your background and your family of origin, you may never even talk about sex. And, again, if we've talked about in the past on another podcast, like, what is your worldview around sex? There may be some shame around it. There may be some, so you may be reticent to talk openly about sex or what you have any expectations. So therefore your belief system is really subconscious and based on what you might have seen on TV.
Yes. Okay, so first, initiate often and with joy. Secondly, be emotionally present, not just physically available. Third, and to me this is super important, prioritize their pleasure and needs. So learn what delights your spouse.
Right.
Okay, learn what delights them.
And that comes from communication.
Yes.
So you have to, may feel silly asking or saying, do you enjoy that? Or speaking out and saying, don't do that. I don't like it.
Don't do that again.
Don't do that again.
Yeah.
But no, feeling free to express yourselves and ask, is this, do you enjoy this?
And do a sexual debrief. Like talk about, what did you like about our encounter? What did you not like about the encounter? Or in the moment, like you're saying, like, nah, that feels uncomfortable for me. Now, just speaking from a person who is coming from church world, I will tell you that these are conversations that are very, very uncomfortable for religious people. But the fact of the matter is, and let nobody lie to you, some of the most sexually dissatisfied people that you're going to meet are in
religious.
churches. And they are religious because there are all these myths and legends and taboos, right, that we have created around sex. And we have almost talk about it like it's a dirty act. But the fact of the matter is that this was created by God for us to enjoy, and therefore we should be free to talk about these things. And so prioritizing learning what pleases your spouse sexually is super important. Become a student of your spouse,
Right.
you know, like Mama Juanita and Pop-Up would say, and they wrote a whole book about it, spouseology.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Spouseology. You gotta, by the way, go get that book. I think it's still on Amazon, Spouseology. Just learn about your spouse.
And again, it starts outside of the bedroom.
Yes.
You know, if you're not somebody who wears perfume, but your spouse likes when you do, maybe that's something you would consider doing for them. And just being responsive, and when something doesn't seem pleasurable or seems averse, then just being mindful of that. Take note and ask.
Yeah, and when they like it, be eager to meet them there, right? Express enthusiasm. And it might take some learning for you, but if you know that this pleases your spouse, again, this is about serving. Right? Okay, so communicate then. This is the next one. Sorry. Communicate openly about desires and boundaries. I think you've touched on this a little bit. But
yeah, we did touch on this a little bit, but generosity also respects limits too. You know, there are a wide variety of reasons that people might have limits. So one could be you just don't like something, doesn't feel enjoyable, it feels uncomfortable, but there may be trauma in somebody's past that has, that they may have healed from on many levels, but there may still be some triggers that bring back that trauma. And so you want to respect that limit. You know, if somebody says that, you know, please don't do that, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Be mindful, be intentional not to do it.
Listen and adjust.
Yeah. Right.
And then, you know, because again, this is not about you. Yes, you're getting something out of this, but it is mutual service to each other. So if somebody says to you, if your spouse says to you, this does not feel good, don't go like, but I want to do it. No, that means you're not respecting them. You're not respecting the boundary around that particular sexual act. And you want to listen and adjust.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then lastly,
remove guilt and shame from the bedroom. Why? Because God designed sex to be celebrated, not endured. And one of the things that I didn't expect it, but I admired when we had in our first church together, and we had young people who we knew were talking about sex. You know, we had them in our youth group, and one of the things that Campbell would make them say is, "Sex is good." And even adults, they have a hard time saying sex is good. And you know, it's just be comfortable with the word, you know, and the fact that it is good.
Yes. And we always put the caveat for young people: sex is good at the right time with the right person. And we always push the right time being that life partner, right? But we needed to remove the shame around sex in church. The secrecy and the shame, the guilt that comes with it. Yeah.
Right. And anything that's kept in darkness will have a hold on you. So like, you know, the shame that is around, you know, sexual experiences with young people, the secrecy, all of that's kept in darkness has a hold over them.
Exactly.
And then in other areas of their lives, the shame will creep in as well.
Yeah. All right. So the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, said this in the Song of Solomon. He said, "I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me." Right? And he has other very, very nice scriptures in there. If you have never read it, you'll learn about climbing the palm tree and loving the breasts of your spouse, etc. It's in the Bible, y'all.
It is.
Go read it. Don't look at me like, what?
So,
All right.
So we're going to transition.
We're going to transition.
To
Can we talk about some pointers?
some pointers for husbands, okay?
Should I take the lead on this?
You
As
think
the
so?
husband? Or do we want to flip the script?
Let's flip the script.
Okay. All right.
So
give the husband some pointers.
Pointers for husbands: be tender and patient.
All right.
I mean, if your wife is ravenous and she's coming at you, ready to go, like, don't stop her. Read the signs.
Read the room,
Read
bro.
the room.
Read the room. Go with the flow.
But in general, be tender and patient and
Yeah.
help your spouse to come to a place of like really vulnerability and willing to let the walls fall down so that she
Yeah.
can be present and connect on every level.
And again, just from, and I always tell young people this, I say this all the time in counseling when I'm counseling guys preparing for marriage. I tell them patience when it comes to sex is paramount. Okay. Understand that you are visually driven. So to get you aroused and to get you ready, all it takes is visuals, and that's it, usually. But for the woman, it takes a little bit more. It's, yes, the visuals, but it is making sure that every level has been touched, spiritually, emotionally, physically. There has been that preparation. You will be ready to have sex way before she is. So you will have to practice some patience. And dare I say, pace yourself.
And remember that sex, you really shouldn't view sex as a right, but as a gift.
Exactly.
When we are in church world, when we do get married, we say that we are one. It's like two lives joining as one. And biblically speaking, when we have intercourse, we become one. But we are still two people. We're still two people, two bodies, two minds, two lives that, even if you've been walking through the same day together, you've been experiencing life and all the world around you differently. And you can't just expect that person is going to give you their body. Generosity is not expecting that somebody gives you their body. It is a gift.
It is
for
a gift.
them to give. You don't
yeah.
steal it.
Yeah. And
listen to her emotional and physical cues. This is tough because they can be perceived as rejection. And you could probably speak to that, but like, it is not. The woman is just, you need to be patient. You'll need to listen to those cues and be present and help her work through the barriers and the walls that are up to your intimacy.
And sometimes you will find that maybe you had every intention of connecting physically through sex that day, but you find yourselves connecting deeply emotionally because you go on and talk about something else that matters to her. Just go with the flow. Just let it be. And maybe you get some that night or the next day, but either way, you've laid the foundation, bro.
The gift will come.
The gift will come. Take it. It's a win. It's a W. Okay. It's a W. It's a win. But most importantly, I think that you would have demonstrated in that moment that you are there fully engaged for your spouse. Right?
And that is those are some points right there.
Yeah.
Like points that, not points like, oh, I'm what do you often tell me? You're racking up the account. Playfully, we'd say that your account is in arrears.
Yeah, account is in arrears, girl. No. I'm just saying.
But connecting on that level demonstrates that you are more than a tool, more than a tool, more than something to be used for your own pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let me give some pointers to the wives. Okay. Embrace your sexuality as God-given, not shameful. Embrace it. Embrace your sexuality. Embrace your body. Embrace everything about you as a gift from God, not something shameful. Make yourself feel nice and sexy. Buy buy whatever feels like it's going to help you feel that way. It might be some lingerie that you buy or whatever will make you feel that way. But the number one thing that you always hear from women, and I saw this unfortunate video and I couldn't see anything wrong with this lady who had a nose job. Her natural nose was perfect. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And then I see the one that was done. Yeah, it was okay. But it looked like something that was stuck on somebody's face. It suits, but it's not that. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, what makes a person... Now, if you have had that kind of surgery, not to judge, but in that moment, I was just thinking, like, what about her appearance led her to believe that she wasn't sexy, she wasn't beautiful, because she was stunningly beautiful before the nose job. So I don't know what happened there. But I just want to say that embrace your sexuality as God-given.
And this is something that comes up often too in counseling. You know, when women, you know, we cycle.
Yeah.
And so our body changes throughout the month and from day to day. And so oftentimes we don't feel sexy. And just know this is a truth. And, you know, we can attest here. Your husband thinks you're sexy all the time. You can put on a couple pounds. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You are beautiful and sexy, and you don't have to question that.
Yeah. Sometimes I say to her, because she comes to me, does this make me look fat? I'm like, I have to remember what time of the month is it? Okay, got it. Honey, you look beautiful. But it's true though, right?
Or you say... You say this to me every time at this time of the month. You know,
I
so
know, right?
You studied my cycles. You studied spousology.
Yeah.
You know, you studied and you know where I am in my cycle, and that this is how I will look and how I will feel, and you know what to say because you remind me. What I should already know. but
do not feel in the moment.
Yeah, but do not feel in the moment. But your spouse desires you. You are desirable regardless of what stage you are in the cycle of the month, or and you know, and after having a baby, or you know, you'll feel different. You know, find yourself. You have to find comfort in your body, and you know, you just have to be aware that you are desirable to your husband.
Exactly. And pursue your husband intentionally. He also needs to feel wanted, right? Be intentional about your pursuit of him. And that is super important. And I always say to people that every affair a man has begins as an emotional affair. And I jokingly say to people, because it's happened before, where somebody just comments on somebody's shirt. Oh my gosh, that shirt brings out the color in your eyes. Even when it doesn't. She's just looking for something to say. But if you haven't heard that from your spouse, if your spouse doesn't compliment you, if your spouse doesn't fill your emotional tank and make you feel like you're all that and 5 bags of chips, somebody will say something small and innocuous and it will send you head over heels and think, oh my gosh, I'm not getting this. Maybe my wife doesn't love me anymore. This person cares about me. No, ladies, pursue him. Okay, he might just have one ab. Still pursue him. Okay, he will never have 6. Sorry, honey. I have them.
They're there.
They're there. They're hidden. They're doing their job. You don't need to see them.
Okay. We can draw them on for you.
Yeah, draw them on for me, baby. All right, I got one ab, and I'm okay with it. Just pursue me, baby. Love me the way I am.
And you know, don't be like me and. You need somebody to parade himself in front of you to remind you to pursue them. Sometimes he does that, but read the signs. Read the,
Hello.
you know, listen and read the signs so that you can adjust.
You can adjust and create space for intimacy, even in busy seasons. Don't use busy seasons as an excuse for lack of physical sexual intimacy, right? Make the time. And sometimes, to be honest with you, you might not even feel like it. But we all have been in this position where we don't feel like doing something, but because we know that it does something for the person we're doing it towards, we still do it. It might be a chore. It might be picking up something that they would have otherwise had to go out and get. You don't feel like driving out again, but you do it because you know that your spouse is going to appreciate it. It's the same thing with sex. Sometimes you don't just feel like it, and you might be getting close to that time of the month, but here you have a ravenous husband who's like, I want it. Take one for the team.
But it might, you could be honest, though. You can say, I don't feel like it, but you know how to make me feel like it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because we've had that conversation before. All right. Okay. So we're almost at the end, but let's talk about, lastly, kind of just to tie everything together, how to build sexual generosity together. All right. And for those of you that are in church world, again, religious, we urge you to invite God into the mix. Pray about your intimacy. All right. Pray about your intimacy. Invite God into the bedroom. I always say to people, and I think I've said it on this pod before, I don't know why people think like when they're having sex, God closes his eyes. Like he excuses himself. Excuse me, I can't watch this. No, God is in the room. All right. God is in the room. You might just as well get used to it. And there's no shame in it. Right?
Right.
So just invite him into the mix.
He's celebrating.
He's celebrating. Yeah. Look at them obey my word. Look at them. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. So that's one. Number two, because then I can go on.
Right. Talk openly outside the bedroom. So discuss your desires, struggles, and dreams without judgment. And so, like, this is a part of emotional connection.
Yeah.
Being on the same wavelength, having a sense of what makes what your purpose is and what makes you tick and what makes you get up out of bed every day. Not just the bills and not just your job, but something that, knowing each other intimately in that way, desire, struggles, and dreams, and not judging that really without, not imposing condemnation or shame, being free to express yourself and your hopes and dreams freely.
Exactly. And then thirdly, serve each other daily, not just sexually, right? When generosity is your lifestyle, sex becomes a joyful extension of it. Like if you are already looking for ways to serve each other, it may be turning on the car before you leave. It may be turning on the heat before you leave. It may be, and I'm just thinking of some of the little things that I do sometimes, but it may be that you do something just to make life easier for your spouse because you know them. Right? Do something that pleases them. I know shopping with our son is stressful for her, so I've just taken that on. I grocery shop. Number one, because it doesn't take me forever. Okay? Because when I go with them, a 1 hour trip can turn into 3. So that is one way I serve our family. And yeah.
I mean, and it could be simple things like picking up something that, your spouse enjoys or loves, I'll make muffins, or I'll make something special as a treat, or you'll pick up a smoked chicken when you get on a Friday, so that I don't have to worry about cooking on a Friday night. Other people, it's pizza. We can't have the pizza. So, it's a smoked chicken for me, and I don't have to worry about what are we going to eat for food for tonight.
Or sometimes I just cook.
Or you'll cook, right? And, it could be buying that thing on Amazon that your husband has saved in the cart.
What did you get?
He buys all of his own things. There's nothing for me to buy.
I was about to say.
There is a lot for me to buy, but we digress severely with that one.
Yeah, but again, it's just finding these ways to serve each other and away from sex. If you live a life of service to each other, sex becomes a joy, right? And then lastly, and this is super important, and I think Amanda said it already, but you want to seek healing if needed. If you have past trauma, past shame, brokenness, all these things may lead to difficulties in connecting sexually. And so if it is needed, please seek professional help. There is no harm in going to counseling, talking to somebody else about your past trauma so that you can be emotionally, spiritually, psychologically available for your spouse. And spiritual healing is super, super important before generosity can actually bloom and become part of the rhythm of your life.
And if you've had other partners, like I said, there's a connection on every level. And sometimes that connection could be painful. And so you really need to learn how to get that other person out of the bedroom.
Yeah.
Out of your mind and out of the bedroom, because if you're not healing or if you haven't found healing, that can be the case that those thoughts and those traumas come with you, and those can be dangerous.
Exactly. So any final takeaway for our friends?
I mean, speak openly about it. There's no shame in speaking openly about sex and your desires, and speak often about it. Make appointments with each other.
Yep.
Because life can be busy, and you want to make sure that you make time for each other, and know each other and each other's desires, so that you can be giving generously.
Exactly. And if I can just encourage you to debrief when you have sex, especially if you're not already having these conversations around what do you like, what are your preferences, just, don't just lie there and go, oh my gosh, that was so great. What was great about it? Okay. No, seriously, what was great about it? I know the orgasm was great, but what else? Right? What did I do that you liked, or what should I not do again? These are conversations that people are not instructed to have. And honestly, somehow we just think that we should just know this stuff. And that's why we go through life just trying to figure it out and making so many mistakes, when we can listen to each other, learn from other people how to actually have these tough conversations. So my challenge to you is, your next sexual encounter with your spouse, debrief it. Let that sit there for a second. Debrief. All right. So generosity or generous love in marriage isn't passive. It's passionate, pursuing, and life-giving. God's design for sex is not stale. It's not out of obligation. It is sacred and something that should be celebrated. And you can transform your marriage when you shift from getting to giving. So be generous sexually with your spouse. Until next time, this is Campbell signing off.
And Amanda too.
All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.